My father's casket was still being lowered into the ground when my stepmother chose that moment to destroy me. 47 family members stood in that October cemetery, and Vivian waited until the mechanical hum of the lowering device filled the silence before she stepped forward in her designer black suit and pointed at me like I was evidence in a courtroom. "Before we let Sterling rest," she announced, her voice cutting through the cold air, "there's something everyone needs to know about Brooke." My name on her lips sounded like poison. I'd known this woman for 8 years, watched her rearrange our family photos so pictures of my mother were less visible, listened to her subtle exclusions wrapped in sweet smiles, but even I hadn't imagined she would do this here, at his grave, while the dirt was still fresh. "This girl," she said, pointing directly at me, "has been living a lie for 32 years. She is not Sterling's biological daughter." The gasps came in waves. My Uncle Theodore dropped his prayer book into the mud. My cousin Mallory grabbed my arm. Someone behind me whispered, "Oh my God." I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My father had been dead for exactly 3 days, and Vivian was standing at his grave trying to erase me from his life entirely. "You're lying," I managed. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. She pulled out a folder she'd been hiding under her coat. "Sterling's blood type was O negative. Brooke is AB positive. It's genetically impossible for him to be her father. I have the medical records right here." My stepbrother Dexter stood beside her, 6 FT of smug satisfaction in a $1,000 suit. "Sorry, sis," he said, dragging out the word like it was a joke. "Guess you're not really family after all. Mom's already spoken to lawyers about the will." The ground felt like it was tilting. This was the man who taught me to ride a bike, who walked me to my first day of teaching, and called me every single Sunday night just to hear about my week. Sterling Caldwell, who owned 3 hardware stores across town, and introduced me to every employee, every customer, always the same way. "This is my daughter Brooke. She's going to be a teacher someday." And Vivian was standing at his grave, telling everyone he wasn't my father. "How dare you?" my Aunt Greta finally said, her voice shaking. "At his funeral, Vivian. Have you no shame?" "I'm just telling the truth," Vivian replied, wrapping herself in that fake sweetness she'd perfected. "Sterling's real legacy belongs to his actual blood, to Dexter." That's when Mr. Harwell cleared his throat. He'd been standing quietly by the large oak tree, holding his briefcase with the stillness of someone who'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Franklin Harwell had been my father's lawyer and closest friend for 20 years. He'd been at my high school graduation, my college graduation, even my first school's parent-teacher night when I was nervous about meeting families. "Mrs. Caldwell," he said, his deep voice cutting through the chaos like a blade, "before you continue this spectacle, perhaps we should discuss what Sterling left in my care." The confidence on Vivian's face cracked just slightly. "What are you talking about?" Mr. Harwell walked forward with measured, deliberate steps. "Sterling anticipated this might happen. 6 months ago, he came to my office with very specific instructions and a sealed package. He reached into his briefcase and produced a large manila envelope covered in my father's handwriting. He said, and I quote, "If Vivian tries to claim Brooke isn't my daughter at any point after my death, you are to immediately read this letter and play this recording. Do it publicly, Franklin. Don't let her poison people's minds in private." The cemetery went so quiet, I could hear distant traffic 2 streets over. 47 members of my family stood completely frozen. "The passage you provided is far too long to rewrite into Kakiwa 1,000 words. In a single response, while also preserving its full narrative arc, it also exceeds the maximum response length I can generate at once. I can absolutely rewrite it into a GOUT 100% unique, engaging US English version, but it will need to be delivered in sections, or as a downloadable document." Even the funeral director, who had remained respectfully beside the hearse throughout the service, seemed to sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. He leaned forward ever so slightly, his attention fixed on the envelope resting in Mr. Harwell's hands. The envelope looked ordinary, except for the neat handwriting across the front. It read, "To be opened only under the circumstances we discussed." Beneath that, written with unmistakable care, were 8 words that stole every ounce of strength from my legs. "My daughter Brooke is my greatest achievement." My throat tightened. My vision blurred. Every instinct inside me begged me to cry, but I refused. Not here. Not in front of Vivian. Not while she stood waiting for me to break. Even after death, my father was still protecting me. He was still calling me his daughter. He was still fighting for me. Vivian folded her arms, trying to recover the confidence that had slipped from her face. "This is ridiculous," she scoffed. "Medical records don't lie. Blood is blood." Mr. Harwell didn't react. Instead, he calmly nodded. "You're correct," he replied. "Blood tests don't lie." For the first time since the confrontation began, Vivian smiled. She thought she had won. She thought biology was the final argument. Then Mr. Harwell slowly reached back into his briefcase. He removed a small digital voice recorder and placed it carefully on top of the envelope. "My client believed you would rely on those records," he said, "which is why he prepared for this moment months ago." The confidence disappeared from Vivian's face. voice. "What is that?" A recording made by Sterling Caldwell before his passing. The cemetery became so quiet, I could hear leaves scraping across the stone walkway. "He knew about the documents you collected." Mr. Harwell spoke without emotion. "He knew about your intentions." Another pause. "He knew you intended to challenge Brooke's place in this family after his funeral." Vivian swallowed. Her hands tightened around the folder she had carried so proudly only moments earlier. He referred to it as an attempt at posthumous character assassination. Those words landed like thunder. I looked at the envelope again. Dad knew. He had known exactly what would happen. Somehow, he had anticipated every move before anyone else had made it. Dexter's smug smile finally disappeared. He looked first at his mother, then at me, then back toward the attorney. "This has to be a bluff," he muttered. Vivian nodded quickly. "Exactly." But even she no longer sounded convinced. "Read the letter." The words came from my own mouth before I even realized I had spoken. My voice sounded stronger than I felt, steadier, as though my father himself was lending me his courage one last time. "If my father wrote something," I continued, "then everyone deserves to hear it." Mr. Harwell carefully broke the wax seal. The soft crack echoed through the cemetery with surprising clarity. Suddenly, Vivian stepped forward. "Wait!" Her face had turned almost the same color as the gray October sky above us. "We don't need to do this here." Nobody answered. "We can discuss this privately." Before Mr. Harwell could respond, Aunt Greta stepped beside me. Her voice cut through the silence like broken glass. "No," she pointed directly at Vivian. "You wanted an audience." She glanced toward the gathered mourners. "You chose this place." Then she folded her arms. "So let's hear what Sterling had to say." Mr. Harwell adjusted his glasses. He unfolded the neatly written pages with the same careful precision my father always admired. Then he began reading, "To my beloved daughter, Brooke." Those 5 words alone shattered every lie Vivian had tried to build. My eyes closed for just a moment. I could hear my father's voice in every sentence. Patient, steady, kind. The same voice that taught me to ride a bicycle. The same voice that stayed on the phone every Sunday evening. The same voice that always ended every conversation by saying, "Love you, kiddo." The letter explained everything. Months before his death, my father had discovered unusual financial activity involving the family business. He realized money was quietly being moved. He realized Vivian was preparing for something. Most importantly, he realized she intended to erase me after he was gone. So he prepared, not out of anger, out of love. He explained that he had always known the truth about my biological father. My mother had told him decades earlier. She had confessed everything shortly after learning she was pregnant. She expected him to leave. Instead, he held her hand and made a promise. "That child will be mine." And according to the letter, he had never broken that promise for a single day. He wrote that family was never created by DNA. Family was built through love, sacrifice, and choice. Every scraped knee he bandaged, every bedtime story he read, every birthday cake he baked after my mother died, every Saturday morning spent teaching me how to run the hardware store. Those moments made us father and daughter. Nothing else mattered. Then came the legal documents. Decades earlier, he had formally acknowledged me as his daughter under state law. The paperwork had been properly filed in court, witnessed, notarized, permanent. There was nothing Vivian could challenge, nothing she could undo. The family business had also been transferred into an irrevocable trust months before his death. Everything had been structured carefully. The stores, the equipment, the land, every share, every account. Everything had already been legally secured. Vivian would receive exactly what their prenuptial agreement guaranteed. No more, no less. Dexter would receive nothing beyond the support my father had already provided during his lifetime. Then came the final paragraph, the words that broke every remaining wall inside me. "Brooke, if you're hearing this, then I wasn't wrong. I knew someone would try to convince you that you never belonged. I need you to hear my voice one last time. You have always been my daughter. You always will be. My greatest achievement was never the stores. It was raising you, the little girl who believed every broken bicycle could be fixed, the young woman who became the teacher she always dreamed of becoming. I could not be more proud of you. Stand tall. Protect the people who depend on you, and never allow anyone to convince you that love requires blood. It never did. It never will. I love you." Dad, by the time Mr. Harwell finished reading, not a single sound remained in the cemetery. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then someone began crying. Aunt Greta, not quietly, not politely. She cried with the overwhelming relief of someone who had watched justice finally arrive. One by one, relatives walked away from Vivian. Instead, they came to stand beside me. Without saying a word, they had finally seen the truth my father had spent his life protecting. And for the first time since he died, I realized something beautiful. He hadn't left me alone. He had simply left me prepared.